Faithful Responders consists of 2 deputies and 2 firefighters with nearly 40 combined years of service as first responders. Scotty, Jonathan, Clint, and Jacob invite you to listen as they discuss various issues that first responders deal with in their daily lives as well as on the job. The crazy schedules, training, mandatory OT, and the extra gigs provide little time for family, let alone going to or committing to a church. Their prayer is that this will be something used to help keep you encouraged and equipped in your faith. So sit on back, but don't fall asleep. Yes, that means you firefighters. And as always, stay safe.
Man, I love that jingle. Jacob, that was good of getting that thing put together like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Well, it wasn't me. Shout out to David Disharoon.
Oh, is that who did it?
That's who did it.
Nice. I never even knew that. So, hey guys, we're here back with the Faithful Responders podcast. We have a great, awesome legend in the building today. He's looking over his shoulder like, where's that guy at? First, I want to give a shout out to Sandbear Collective and Bellwether Recordings. I also want to give a shout out to the man, the myth, the legend. Chief Tenant is what I call him. Chief/Lieutenant Bones. Donald Bowan. How you doing?
Doing great, Scotty. How are you?
Doing well. Man, I've been trying to get Bones in the studio for a while.
I don't know why. You must not want anybody to listen after this episode.
No, he's man. I'll tell you what. I haven't known Chief very long. But I got moved to Station 15. About a year and a half ago. And I got to meet him and get to know him. And, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I'd love to know more about you. So,
and you still come back?
I call out a lot.
Yeah.
But I finally got him able to come into the studio. And we had a little bit of a delay earlier today. But I hope it doesn't mess up what we're going to find out about Chief Tenant here. So I will I'll give it away and let him take it on. Because tell us a little about yourself.
Well, what do you want to know?
I want to know how you got in the fire service.
I was very lucky. I was working for Gas Incorporated, which is a propane delivery company out of Conyers. And I was working at the Lawrenceville branch, and an opening for a service technician came up at the Conyers location, and I was able to do it in what they call the something transfer within the system. And when I went to work down there, there was 2 part-timers that worked there, and they were both captains with Rockdale County Fire. And I started working with them, and I guess they kind of I showed them my work ethic, and they thought that I could be an asset in the fire department. So when they had an opening, I was able to apply and get that position.
Cool. Well, how old are you when you first got in?
31, 32-ish.
Wow.
As you know, back then, it wasn't like it is today. It was almost an 8-month process to get hired on back then. There was several things you had to do. You had to, of course, go take a general knowledge written test, and you had to wait for that to go through. Then you had to come in and get an interview. Then you had to go get a background check, and then you had to go get a lie detector, and then you had to go get a psychological evaluation, and those things just back then they didn't occur like they did now, because, this was before the computer age. It was back when we still had phones and stuff, and you'd have to call and set up the appointments.
No cell phones?
No, well, there were cell phones.
Okay.
But, you know what I'm talking about.
How'd you pass all those?
It was rough.
I was about to say.
It was rough.
Well, that's awesome. I didn't. I've known that you're a legend over there at Rockdale, and everybody I've ever talked to that's over there has had high regard for you. And but I guess that's how you got into the service. How long? Tell us a little bit. Like, how many years did you serve? And was it? I guess it's all been with Rockdale.
It was. I did 22-ish years at Rockdale, and working on my second year at Newton now, a little over 2 years and a couple of months now at Newton.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you you became
started at the bottom, the
Yep.
lowest guy on the totem pole, and worked my way up. When I retired from Rockdale, I was serving as a battalion chief for the A shift. I went back and forth between Battalion 1 and Battalion 2. Cool. Just, how the fire service are. They like to just make changes. So I covered both of the battalions for 6 years, maybe, something like that.
That's awesome. Everybody I've ever talked to said that you were a firefighter's chief. So
exactly what does that mean, Scotty?
To me, I feel like that means you're very personable and you put your guys first. That's what it means to me when I hear people say that. I think that, you in every profession, you all know this too. Welcome to the show, Jonathan and Jacob. Y'all know this as well, and y'all in SO and any kind of police work is that, a lot of guys, when they get certain height and up there, they kind of forget where they were and they forget about the guys, and it's all about their career and where they're going and that kind of thing. And so I think that's when they say a firefighter's chief, I feel like that means that you didn't forget that stuff. And I think one reason, which I tell people helps me a lot, was the fact that I got in about the same age you did. I got in when I was 30. And I tell people a lot that it really helped me with my leadership skills and understanding individuals and all that other stuff from my past jobs. And that me being a manager in a managerial role with one of my past jobs, like, I don't think I would have been as good a fireman or at what I was supposed to do in the fire service if I would have got right out of high school. I think there's a purpose for that. Sometimes I wish I would have.
Well, especially in the public service profession.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And you have to have all that wildness out of you, or you're not going to last very long, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Definitely.
You can't stay out all night doing different things and then expect to show up at the fire department at 7 o'clock and be 100%. It's something else.
And what's even crazier about having, I guess I'll just call you Bones.
Sure.
I was about to call. I haven't called him Donald or Bowen once since I've known him, so it's just been Bones.
I got that nickname when I was I think I was either in the 3rd or 4th grade, and it's just been with me ever since.
Oh my goodness!
I was just about to ask you,
Yeah.
where did you get that nickname from?
Yeah, I used to be
it's a great
skin and
nickname.
bones, you know what I'm saying? I was a little bitty scrawny runt, And
that's cool.
that just stuck with me, playing Little League baseball and football and all that stuff. And somehow it just hung around, and here I am.
You're not skin and bones anymore.
Unfortunately, I am not.
And what's so ironic and cool about it, which I don't believe in irony, but y'all know what I'm saying, is I got moved to the station, had no clue that he went to our church, because he usually goes to the early service. I go to the second service, and we started talking one day, and he asked me a question about somebody in my small group, and I was like, yeah. And then he started saying things that were weird, like he knew about my life at church, and I was like, this is really odd. I was like, is this guy stalking me? He really looks into the people coming to his station because he's my station commander. I was like, yeah, he puts a lot into this job. I said, I guess he's going to investigations or something, I don't know. But then I find out that he actually he goes to the Grove as well. And so it was pretty cool because now we related on that as well.
That's correct.
And we talk about stuff all the time with the Grove, like, just how things are going, the services, and now that the building, we talk a lot about the building. And so it's been good being able to get to know you in that perspective. But I guess I really don't, I would like to know, how we're here, our main concern here is faith and getting to know Christ and becoming a follower of God. So where did all that come into your life?
From my wife.
Oh.
I was a real lost soul for a long time.
Oh, man.
And I met her in 1990, maybe the winter of 89, I guess. And she came from a family of, I don't want to use the word Christians, but I mean, they were, it was Sunday night, Wednesday night, every time the doors are open.
Old school kind of.
Old school. Center Hill Baptist Church up there on Center Hill Church Road.
Know exactly where it is.
That's the church we got married in. And somehow I convinced her to kind of get involved in a relationship with me, and I don't know what she was thinking. Obviously she wasn't. But, I guess she had something that she wanted to accomplish, and she kept just chiseling away at me. And finally, after 8-ish years of being married, the light bulb came on, and I realized then what I needed to do to change my life.
So you say 90, I guess 98, around that time?
It was somewhere around then. My days run together. I can't be, exact about it. I know the day that I was baptized on Halloween of 1999, as you know, we were coming up against the Y2K shutdown. The whole world was going to end. So I thought, what a better day to get baptized than on Halloween,
Ain't going to be no more electricity ever again. Everything's going to go down.
The church was using that as a scare tactic.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But we lived in the Brookview Manor subdivision off of 81, right there at Youth Middle School. Mm-hmm. And across the street from me were these fine neighbors I had. Some of you may know Kathy and Eddie Farmer. They were brothers and sisters, and they lived across the street. And Kathy was the one that actually walked across the road. At the time, I had a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, and I was a lost soul, And they were attending the summit at that time, and there was a young man coming from the Hells Angels that had a story to tell about how he converted his life from that type of situation over to being a Christian and all. And that was the first time that I was able to go to the church service at the summit, which, if most of you know, that, Russ's brother, Butch, was the pastor there, the lead pastor there. And that's basically how it got started. He reached out and took a chance on a lost soul as well, and paid a visit to my house and came over, and we talked for a while, and he talked to Sandy for a while, and, kind of changed my mindset on where I was going and what I needed to do. We had 2 kids at the time. My son Bruce was born in March of 94, and my daughter was born in June of 97. So somewhere in that time frame, it was after my daughter was born, but basically, I got to thinking about what kind of example I was setting for them, and I knew it needed to change.
It's funny because I know several couples and several people who came to Christ simply because they were trying to have their kids in a wholesome environment.
Right.
Or they wanted their kids to grow up in like some kind of activity, youth group kind of thing. And that's what actually got them into church and got them actually paying attention to Christ, getting into the Bible and stuff like that. So it's funny.
I was always one of those ones is I never wanted to deny my kids the rights to have something like that. Just because I didn't go to church didn't mean that they couldn't go to church. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I know the first probably 7-8 years that me and Sandy were married, I mean, she would go to church without me on Sundays. It was just, she would go with her mom. They would go trying to find somewhere for us to fit in. And, I would just stay at home.
Yeah.
Which
is also ironic because I was asked one time to do or help with a men's conference, and I wouldn't call it a sermon, message, whatever you want to call it. And one of the things I talked about and brought up was the fact that men are supposed to be the leaders in the church, but in many churches I've been to, and many scenarios and things that I've seen, it's the women who are actually the ones doing all the work, or the ones who are very faithful, or the ones that start going to church and get the man to come to church. Rarely do you see a man coming to church to get a woman to come to church. And I said, as godly men, a lot of times in the church, we set ourselves on that role and that pedestal, and then just leave it there.
Right.
And we don't put the work into that. We don't do the leadership, and we expect that role, but yet we don't put anything into that role. And I said, and it's just funny and it's crazy because the Lord uses our wives and our girlfriends or whoever, a significant other, to a lot of times pull us into. It's funny because we're always like, oh, we're the logical beings, you know. But what's funny is our wives a lot of times pull us into that logic, and it makes us think. It's like, oh yeah, and then how can you be the leader at home if you're not even going to lead and try to set an example like you just said?
Absolutely.
Have any of y'all done the Better Man stuff, the study?
No, I've actually
Did you do it?
I just talked to somebody about this.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I did it a little bit. I kind of fell off. I want to do the next one all the way through.
Yeah, I didn't. There was a couple of sessions that I missed, but just because of my patrol schedule. But that was like the very beginning of Better Man. They were talking about exactly what you're talking about, Scotty. Like it's kind of been, it's kind of sad, but it's kind of been like a slow fade, like over our nation's history. Like men back in the 50s or whatever the statistics said through Better Man, through the school or the program. But they said, back then it was reversed. Like men were taking the lead and the charge, but then just across, several decades, it's just kind of been this slow fade and almost reversal, and men have slowly faded out. Women have felt like they needed to be the ones to step up.
I think that I've actually heard of a lot of stories like that. I think Pat is actually a story like that, where the woman in your life, the one that you love and all that, and I love that probably at the time compared to now was not even in comparison, because then you realize what true love was with Christ, right? Seriously. And I remember listening to Pat's story, and Pat's one of the assistant pastors at our church, and his story was very similar, where he had fallen off. I think his was in his late 20s, I think is what it was, as well. Something like that, or it might have been early 20s. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. The point is that ironically and unironically at the same time, according to what y'all were saying, we're supposed to be leaders in the church. I found that a lot of those relationships that I've heard of, especially that one, where the woman was the one who was a Christian, who was really trying hard to pull in the person that they love towards Christ. So like, I need you to be the man in the relationship, to lead me through Christ. I need you to be that way. And then, like I said, ironically, that person ends up being a great leader in Christ, a fantastic one, even better than a lot of people who followed through Christ since they were a boy, since they were a teenager. That were in the church. So the ones that were out, that found that new love through the pulling of the person that they love, their earthly love, finding their eternal love in Christ. It's like, that passion burns like hot. Yeah. And they find that sort of just vivacious nature of it.
Well, women are also not afraid to be vulnerable. A lot of women, they hone in on that emotional feeling inside of them, where men are prideful. We're very prideful, and we don't want to admit. We want to admit to them we had to do something wrong. Right. We want to take control, but yet we don't want to submit to that, to what is in our life first. We think, we'll handle that on our own and then move on. Well, what happens is that the Lord gets a hold of our heart, which is love, emotion. It's those characteristics, and when when he gets a hold of a woman, she wants more. She craves that, and like for us guys, we do too. but we don't want to admit that. It's hard for us to crack that egg and get a hold of that shit underneath that shell. And it's like I told y'all before, that pride thing it kills us men. So that over time it's like, well, we're not going to go do this because now she's doing it, and all of a sudden, so we're scared, we're really scared and vulnerable, but we don't want to admit it to kind of open up.
Well, in my case, when I did start going to church and started to make a change in my life, I was worried what everybody else around me was going to think. Were they going to accept me? Were they still going to invite me over? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was worried about this silly stuff that I shouldn't even have been worried about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because in the grand scheme of things, it was zero. You know, and that, like you said, that's just, it seems like that's the way we're wired. If for some reason we're always thinking about, you know.
And the craziest part is you serve in the church.
Yeah.
And so, and the same thing as the Pat story is he serves in the church. And which is crazy because that prideful thing is just immediately dismissed. It's like those guys, they take on it. You take on this charge, which ironically was due to your wife.
Right.
Can I ask a very personal question? Would you say before you made that transition, you made that decision to submit your life to Christ and everything, and start going to church and being involved with Christ, would you say that you were a good leader in your household?
Zero.
Well, so
no.
I mean,
No way, shape, or form.
You just
thank
kind
you
of
for your
existed.
honesty.
I mean, Sandy was the super glue holding the whole thing together.
Oh man.
You know what I mean?
And that's and I'm gonna tell.
And it took me so long, like I said, 7 or 8 years before the light bulb ever went off. You know,
yeah.
what kind of idiot am I, or what kind of fool am I? You know,
And you,
One of those phrases where they go, "He's my other kid," type of thing, where the mom goes, "I actually have 4 kids, my 3 kids, and then this
Yeah.
big fella right here."
yeah,
You know,
well, it's funny because like if you look out in the crowd, I'm telling you, if you look at church, if there's an individual, like a grown individual there, you'll rarely see a man by himself. It's usually a woman by themselves, and it's either, and who knows, they could be, they might not have a significant other. But what I'm saying is that it's very common. Like that's a very common thing in the church, and it all has to come down with us men in general. And what's crazy is that you've turned into a great leader, but yet it took your wife and God, to push you into that role. And you said you cared about, one of the things was like I care about, and I've heard that from a lot of people. They care. What are my friends going to say? What are old people going to say? I had a student last year. He came to me, very personal. He was hurting, like, very hurt inside. He was struggling with he wasn't very popular. He's afraid he didn't do anything right, and I wouldn't say suicidal, but one of those kids that's just looking for acceptance. And he wasn't that good at baseball, but he tried. He gave a great effort. And the one thing he said was the fact that he had people, he would tell me that people would make fun of him, people would laugh at him, people would say things to him. And I told him, I said, just ponder on this. I was like, think about this. You are putting all your emotion, all your emphasis on people that don't care about you.
that's exactly right.
I think about that. Like, they're not your friend. Like you said to yourself, you were worried about what your friends would think. If they thought any differently of you, then they're really not your friend.
You're right.
And so I tried to tell him, I said, stick with the people that care about you. Like, why do we as individuals in general, why do we hone on people who are the negative? We always hone on the negative. Like we always hone on, well, I feel bad if that person doesn't like me. If I feel bad if that's, but why don't we look at the people who do? Like
it's like a paradox, really. I mean,
absolutely.
It really is 100%, and it's the most horrible sort of contradiction that we have, especially as men, because women wear the fear of anyone judging them on the outside. We wear it on the inside.
Oh yeah.
Truly. I mean, they wear it probably both, but they show it on the outside, where it's like clothes, makeup, and all that. We wear it on the inside, but yeah, I 100% agree. I was wondering, big time. I think a lot of people, this podcast is really, it's oriented towards anyone, of course, in their journey towards Christ. but especially towards any sort of first responders, and in this case, especially fire. And Bones, I was wondering, I'm really interested in the way in which you were a chief and a firefighter before and after Christ, and what sort of difference in character transformation that was for you.
Well, when I got into the fire service, I was already had been saved, been baptized. So on that side of it, I really can't, I don't really have any significant feelings, I guess you would say, about that. But I do know on the other side, the fire service is a awful hard place to be in at times because of there's a lot of lost souls out there, and it's very hard to separate it, I guess is the word I'm trying to say, because it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. And I really don't think it needs to be that way. But I guess it's just the way it's been,
I know exactly what you're saying.
Without calling, saying anything or doing anything, it's a struggle from time to time.
Being a young kid in high school, I cussed a lot, but I was always able to say no to sex, no to drugs, no to alcohol.
Right.
I don't know how, because everybody else did it. But what was crazy about that is I made more friends and more close individuals, and people liked me more because I didn't do those things. I feel like if I did those things, I wouldn't have had the recognition I did. But because I didn't, I stood out. And so that's something that I've always tried to teach my kids, my daughters. But like the high school baseball players and JV and middle school baseball players that I've mentored and coached, that's one thing I try to tell them. I said, if you are doing what everybody in the crowd and everybody else is doing, you're just one of the people in the crowd.
That's exactly
I said, there's a couple people who stand out, but usually it's because they're the most what you don't want to be.
Right.
I said, but if you are the complete opposite, no matter if it's unpopular, if you are the opposite, you will stand out, and people want to know more about you. They're going to want to know what you are, who you are, why you're this way.
Set the example, don't be the example.
And absolutely. And in my time in the fire service, which if I would have gotten in at 30, it might have been different. I could have.
Absolutely.
But I got in at 30, where I was already at the age where I didn't care what these guys thought about me and how I felt about the Lord and my belief system. I didn't care. I said, it doesn't matter to me, And the thing that was hard for me is the people who made fun of me or gave me a hard time, which is actually less than the ones who didn't. But those people, I tried to love them more. I tried to care for them more. I tried to show them more attention, to show them that I didn't care if they were mean to me or they didn't agree with me, because I'm not trying to prove myself to the person who believes in Christ and the person who believes in me. He already knows my faith. I'm trying to show myself to somebody who doesn't, because I want them to have what I don't. And that's what I always thought about people like that is perfect example. I don't want to use names, but both of these people I'm talking about. Okay. I had a friend. I have a friend. I'm still close to him and I love him. When I met him, he said he was an atheist. Okay. So I asked him, he was working with us. I asked him, I think I might have mentioned this on the show before, I don't know. But I asked him, I said, so you're an atheist? This was my first shift working with him. And the first thing he said is like, I don't want to talk to you. I already know how you feel. I already know you. You know, you say a prayer before the meal, and I already know what you're going to say. And he got really upset. And I was like, yes, okay. And I let it go. I didn't say nothing about it. I said, the only thing I said about it was like, look, I only wanted to kind of pick your brain. I just wanted to see how you felt. I'm not trying to prove you wrong.
Right.
And so later that day, he came back to me and he actually apologized. And he said, look, I'm sorry, but every Christian I've ever gotten close with or semi-close with or talked to about it, about the way I feel about my atheistic belief, has basically said, made me feel like an idiot, said I'm wrong, I'm stupid, blah, blah, blah. And I told him, I said, well, sounds like they didn't go about it the right way. I said, because that's not what I was trying to do. I wanted to pick your brain, and I wanted to know more about you to see why you felt that way.
Right.
And then I wanted to introduce myself to you,
Right,
so you can understand me and we could understand each other. And he mentioned a guy's name that we work with or worked with him. And he, and that's the main one of the main people he thought about. And I said, I'm sorry that you went through that with those people. I was like, but I'm not that kind of person. I don't call myself a Christian. Like you said earlier, what is a Christian? Or you said, if you call it that, I call myself a Bible believer, a follower of Christ.
right.
So I don't like the word Christian because you add too many different kind of quote unquote Christians in that. I mean, Mormonism is a Christianity. I'm not a Mormon. So, that's where I stand on the whole Christianity thing. But it hurt me to hear him say that. And we're talking about a guy who's my age. He's 40 years old. And he has never in his life that he can remember met somebody who believes in God or follow Christ that didn't make him feel unwanted or they didn't want to know about him. They just wanted to push what they had onto him.
Right. And that's a shame.
It is.
It's a crying shame.
It is. And, I have seen God work in his life, and I pray for him almost every day. I won't say every day because there are some days I don't pray for him. Right. Sorry if you know who this is. But I pray for him all the time.
Right.
All the time. He's on my prayer list, and I pray for him all the time.
You can't give up on him.
No, and
you can't.
But
because when you do, that's when that's when the devil starts easing his way in.
Absolutely.
Because like I said, I was 30-something years old before it kicked in with me. Who knows? This guy may end up being 75.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as we keep molding the clay, chipping away, little by little, hopefully he'll get there and he'll understand.
And the other thing is, in America, it's hard too. Y'all know this. It's hard to be patient. And that's what people need. They need patience and they need love. Right. We don't have to agree. And I've mentioned this several times. I tell people all the time, I don't agree with my wife a lot, but there's no person on this planet in a physical form that I treasure, love, and desire more. But yet we disagree all the time.
That's right.
That doesn't mean I love her any less.
That's right.
And for somebody to tell me that they believe a certain thing or do a certain thing, it actually makes them love them more because I want to know more about them. I want to understand them more.
When you become educated from them and understanding, you see things a little better.
Yeah.
It broadens your horizon. It makes you think more. Thinking outside the box, because we don't know it all. We might think we do.
If you think about it logically, I like that explanation where you just said you get educated on someone or something in general, but especially people.
Right.
It eliminates that ignorant aspect.
Right.
Ignorant aspect is making someone feel ashamed for the way that they think.
Right.
You're not them. And for you to shame someone and claim to be a Christian is kind of contrary to the very premise of it being based in the love of Christ.
Well, there's the old adage, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Absolutely.
You know, there's more than one. You know, just because it's the way I think about it, that's not the only way to get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's millions of ways to get there. The main focus is you want to make sure they get there.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to continue to pray for these individuals.
And what I look at it is when you're a leader in an army, the way he's going to try it, the best way for him to try to beat whoever he's going up against, his war against, is to try to figure out what their strategy is.
That's right.
Figure out who they are.
You have to know them.
So
One
one of the things I learned in college, I hate to say it, but I took a debate class in college, and one of our main tests, our midterm, was I had to debate on something I did not agree with against somebody else who agreed with what I actually agreed with, and they were debating what they did not agree with. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. But actually, it made me learn about how to engage and how to confront something that I don't believe in. Because the best way to confront someone who doesn't believe the same way as you is to try to understand more about them.
Where they're coming from.
Yes. Not just jump to conclusions.
Difference between discourse and discord.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's huge. It's huge. It's conversationalist. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, the gift of what do they call that? Being able to speak to someone.
Gab. That's
Maybe.
I have the gift of gab. I don't think I have the gift of being able to speak to someone.
Gabby.
Actually, my firemen that I work with and my drivers I work with, they would disagree because when we go to the store, they're like, "Do you know these people? Or are you just literally just saying hey to everybody?"
Going in the vegetable aisle. You like that bell pepper? I like that bell pepper.
Yeah,
Do you go to church?
awesome.
Speaking of bell peppers, do you go to church? I know a good one.
Well, I think exactly what y'all are talking about is what Christ would do. I mean, with the people he was around, people he interacted with.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
He came to this earth, took on flesh, set aside his godliness, his holiness, so he could live here with us and understand people and know what they're going through.
Right.
And he, I was listening to a sermon the other day, or actually earlier today, and they were hitting on I think it's in John. I can't remember what chapter or verse, but Jesus wept.
Mm-hmm.
That verse is in reference to Lazarus.
Yeah, when he passed
away.
When he found out they passed.
Yeah, and this was before he called him out of the grave.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
But he wept for him, and I think the sermon was hitting on that shows or showed the humanity of Jesus,
Right.
and that he too was mourning and suffering that loss of his beloved friend.
Yeah.
And so that I think that not only did he suffer on the cross, and go through that pain and suffering for us and ahead of us, but even before that, he was showing emotion and showing that he was suffering the way that we suffer. So he understood he understands, he gets us,
Yeah.
and he knows what we're going through. So I think what you're saying, taking the time to understand somebody, where they're coming from, how they're hurting, so you can almost mourn with them or suffer through that with them.
Yeah.
You're making that burden easier on them.
The empathy you build
Yeah,
empathy
empathy,
instead of because you can be sympathetic towards anything. You can be sympathetic towards a dog that's in pain.
Yeah.
But to be empathetic is to speak to them, to know them as a brother and a sister.
But I'm glad you brought that up because think about this. All through Christ's life and all through Scripture, he talks pretty much down upon what the church, or not the church, but the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Levites. He uses them as negative references, and he uses the non-believers and what they do as in positive perspectives. But think about this. So God wept for Lazarus, right? So he wept for him, but he died for the people that didn't believe in him.
That's right.
So he wept for the people who loved him and trusted he was God and his friends, but he went way above weeping for the people who didn't care nothing about him.
One
the
was
one
worth
who
the
crucified
99. One was worth the
Absolutely.
99.
He died for the people who crucified him, and he wept for the ones that loved him. And it's just like, that's the God we serve. And that's not the way that people look at a quote-unquote Christian. They don't look at us that way. They don't look at people who believe in God that way. They look at us as people who don't care about them.
Well, I want to circle back just a little bit. In our small group, we're watching the Chosen series,
Love it.
and
Shout out, Joe.
I got to thinking about this. We had some time off due to sickness and stuff like that, but there was an episode where Jesus was going to send the disciples out, and he paired them up, and he put the ones that you would think that he would never pair up together, and they all look at each other going, why do I have to go with this guy? Why do I have to go? You know what I'm saying? But it was Jesus in his own way, in my opinion, trying to get two different aspects to get to the same end goal. You
Absolutely.
know, and you know that just shows great leadership right there in my mind.
Yeah.
Because he took, you know, I'm not saying that they didn't have the same feelings or the same beliefs. They just had different ideas on what he was asking them to do and how to get to the end goal.
Almost like denominations.
Right. And, you know,
Just saying.
but
I'm
it
just
goes
saying.
back to what I say, you know, it's not how we get to the end goal, it's that we do get to the end goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jesus was trying to teach his disciples, that there's many different ways that you're going to be challenged to get to that end goal.
It's funny because it goes back to the whole zebra cake earlier.
Oh.
There was a zebra cake over there in the corner, and I really wanted it. And Jacob said, "Oh, is that your enemy or your weakness
Your
or whatever?"
weakness.
Yeah.
And I said,
It's
well,
his vice.
well,
That's
I said,
what his vice
I
is.
said, well, Jacob, I'm gonna tell you this. I said, flip that. I was like, think about it this way. I was like, what if that's what kept me from overindulging to be gluttonous on something else? I was like, what if that one zebra cake gives me the contentment to not have something for another week because I had my zebra cake? I was like, but yet, so is the zebra cake bad at that point? Because that
you were lusting over the
because
zebra
that
cake.
helped me not to do that. And I said it's very similar because when I started listening to Christian rock and Christian rap and all this kind of Christian music that's coming out more, there wasn't much in the 90s. It was very slim to none. There was DC Talk, which I loved, but my mom hated DC Talk, and so which is
Love me some
funny.
DC Talk.
Which is funny because one of the lead singers of DC Talk is Toby Mac, who is literally like the most known Christian influencer pretty much in music of all time. So, but what I used to use against my mom, and I was telling Jacob this, is the fact that I said, Mom, so you don't like Christian rock? And she's like, oh, it sounds terrible. You know, she's a little different now. But, you know, and there was a point in time where she wouldn't even listen to some of the stuff on the Fish, you know?
Right.
And so her and I had a conversation, which she hates my conversations with her.
What, Scotty? Is it a little long-winded? Can't imagine that being
How long are
a thing.
How long are we going to be here?
Yeah.
Hey, you don't know my mom. They're very long-winded.
Is that where you get it from?
I can't imagine.
Absolutely. Ask my dad.
Yeah.
But so like,
Interesting.
but just to make a short story, I say, so you think Christian rock is bad? And she's like, oh yes, I think that Christian rock is not good. And I heard some people say, I think Christian rock's worse than real rock because it's using a secular music and putting the Lord's name inside of it. And I'm like, I responded, Mom never said that, but not that extreme. But I responded with this. I said, so you think that something that can get somebody to heaven is bad? And she goes, whoa, I didn't say that. I'm like, those Christian rock bands are responsible for leading millions of people to Christ.
It's so funny you say that because my wife, literally, it's not mine. Music is not my way of like getting close to God. It's not. It just isn't. Right? For a lot of people, it is, but I just don't. It's not. Mine is reading and especially listening to the Bible, and then stories about the Bible and historical narrations of the Bible. Right?
Yeah,
That's
I love that too.
and Scotty likes that too.
Yeah.
That's actually where we get along on a lot of things historical. We also argue a lot about that stuff, but in a healthy way.
It is
That's where
healthy.
the discourse turned into discord, but in a healthy way because we're not dummies. Anyways, the point is that just because it's not your thing.
Right.
Like she gets into it, and I love watching it. But I don't feel anything from it. I tell her all the time, I'm like, it doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
Well, I'll circle back around with what you were talking about with the Christian music. Most of the times, people listen to the words, but they don't read the words to know how they apply.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
How this song applies to God or how to Jesus, because they hear the music, but they don't read the words.
Yeah.
The sermon.
Oh, yeah.
It's a sermon.
Right.
That is
Exactly.
Just sung.
And that's what I
sung
love.
sermon.
And Clint's brought this up, and he brought it up in the last podcast. But he started reading that song about the Casting Crown song that he mentioned in his testimony as his favorite song, and is like, I will save you in that storm, and that, like, he read all the lyrics, and once you read those lyrics, some of those lyrics, I've heard that song thousands of times, and I was like, dang, I didn't really realize it said that, because
Right.
sometimes you don't pick things up, and but when you actually listen to it and you actually listen to the words a lot of times, it's like, wow. Even with this whole thing, that the stuff that was going out in California, what was that? The all that not conspiracy, but the drama that was going on with that huge mega church. It wasn't Elevation or whatever. Okay,
They stop allowing avocado toast.
no, there was a big like scandal that happened, and I don't remember exactly what it was. There's actually a documentary on it. And so some people are like, we can't listen to that music. We can't listen to anything because that music came from that church, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. Like, is the words in the music bad? Like, is that music wrong because somebody messed up in the church? Because goes back to what we said before, is that why does God get the blame, or godliness get the blame, when man's the one that makes the church wrong or corrupt or sinful? Like, God didn't do that.
That's
the church
right.
and God are perfect.
A lost soul did.
Yeah, and listen to some of those, like some of these songs they're talking about. Like, are you kidding me? That song is incredible. Like, like there's the words to that song. The words alone in some of those songs that came out from that church will get a man saved and him know nothing about Christ, because
and just as easily the opposite.
absolutely,
Because the devil is.
I know what you're talking about. I mean, I think I can't remember the
what
exact
was it?
church.
Hillsong.
Yeah,
I think it was Hillsong.
And
the mega
I've
church?
seen
Yeah.
I've seen some of these videos that some YouTubers and stuff have put out, and they're like dissecting the songs and what the church, what specific church has done. And to me, I see what you're saying too, because like I've gone back and listened to some of those certain songs, and I'm like, I understand what you're breaking down on your video, but I don't. That's not what I think the song is saying.
Well, it's just,
I feel like they're twisting the words a little bit, or they're twisting the interpretation to fit their narrative.
well, it's just like what Chief Bowen said earlier. I think you're looking too far into this, and you're trying to find something, which is what people do all the time with the Bible. Yeah. I mean, people twist the Bible around all the time.
Yeah.
And it's
just look what they do to Mike Tyson.
what.
I'm serious. Have you ever seen those stitches? Those videos that they do where they like make it seem like Mike Tyson's trying to beat up every single person that he ever interviews? Oh, it's hilarious.
I haven't seen.
You should look into it sometime.
I am going to look into it.
I mean, you should. I'm not saying you should listen to. I'm not saying you should listen to his podcast or his excessive smoking of marijuana. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is
that's coming from an SO guy.
marijuana.
Us firemen don't do that.
Marijuana is bad
until we get retired.
Bad for
when
your
we
brain.
retire, I'm not going to say it.
Bad for your brain and bad for the P test. All right, just saying. All right, so No, but it's hilarious.
But
it
people
just,
from both sides do that. People who don't believe in the Bible and
Absolutely.
people who do believe in the Bible, they pull scripture without pulling from context, without actually reading a chapter, 2 chapters, 3 chapters ahead, or even the whole book.
That's right.
You know, like you can't do that. You know, I have a very strong believer in my life that does that. And every time I call him out on it, he gets an attitude with me. And I'm like, look, you cannot jump. You can't go from like Isaiah and then jump to Proverbs and then jump to John, then go back to Jeremiah. And you can't do that. I was like, you just can't do what you're doing. You have to have, now you can pull your context from John and say, here's what I believe and here's why I believe it. And it's similar to this, but you can't say that this is the same thing as this one over here. You're talking about generations and hundreds. You're talking about, it doesn't flow like that. And that's the problem that a lot of people get. And that's how we get twist things. And it's getting worse and worse and worse as we're going.
Yeah, you can pull something wrong from it. Same thing as we were talking about with people earlier. You pull something wrong from a person, just immediately passing a judgment without actually learning about them. You know, delivering yourself from that ignorance, which I have yet to do.
Well,
I got a word for you.
What's that?
Subconscious prejudice.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Just because you hear so many times people say something about an individual and it's always negative, you get that in your mind and you don't want to associate with them because of that.
That's a big deal in the fire service.
Yet, if you go and you meet that guy, or gal, whoever it may be, and once you get to know them, you realize that it's nothing like what you thought.
So
That's
I'm going to give you
point.
I'm going to give you a shout out, and you know who I'm talking about, and I'm going to say his name because I am proud of him. And I felt bad. So Cody Trudeau,
The code man.
yes, and Cody will straight tell you he's had a rough past and he's made some things, he's done some things he's not proud
Made
of.
some questionable decisions. but
Absolutely.
There's one
So-
thing I can say about my code man. He's manned up and he took responsibility for him.
I'm going to tell you
And
something.
that's the main step.
When I came to Newton, I had been there for about 4 months, and they said they were hiring this guy. I don't know who he is. Me and Wiggins are down there at Station 3. And but then I started hearing about this guy's past from everybody. Oh, I can't believe we're hiring this guy. Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness. Oh, did you hear who we're hiring? Did you hear this? And I'm like, what? And then they start telling me some of these stories, which I don't know how truthful they are. So I'm like, I'm listening to these stories, and I'm like, man, this guy sounds like an absolute creep. You know, like,
Right.
and he'll probably tell you, he goes, I was, you know, but, you know, I remember us sitting there and we went up to training and everybody was talking about this right before Cody got here. And we were talking about training and I was like, God, there's not one person here that's looking forward to this guy. Like they're trying to find where they can hide this guy.
Right.
And then Chief comes up to me and he says, hey, you know, I know that you've been on a truck for a while and you love the truck. He goes, I'm going to send you to 7 and we're going to send Trudeau down here and he's going to take your spot. And I said, okay. And so, but we got back to the station today and Wiggins and I sat down and we started kind of like feeding into that a little bit, but then we stopped. It was weird. We both stopped. We said, you know what? It's not really fair to form an opinion because we do this in the fire service all the time.
Yep.
And sometimes I catch myself saying, why am I feeling this way? Like, why am I being this? This is not who I am. And so we stopped and we said, you know what? We're going to act like we never heard any of this and give the man a chance and just see what happened. And I'm going to tell you what.
Nothing. It was
That-
farthest away from what anybody had probably said.
I don't care about his past because that's not the man I know now.
That's right.
Because this guy, I'm going to tell you what, man. This guy's one of the best FAO engineer drivers I've ever met. That guy knows his rig better than almost anybody I've ever met. That guy knows how to use it. He knows everything on there. He knows he takes a lot of pride in his craft, and he loves his rig, and that's what you need. And not only that, he treats everybody with respect. You can tell that the man, he'll tell you, you know, I'm not proud of what I did, but it's just straight love to people. Like you can tell that he is trying hard all the time to be the man he was, not to be the man he was.
That's right.
And I love that about him. And I was about to be really upset with myself to form an opinion about him.
Absolutely.
Based on his past or what other people are saying.
And you know what? That transformation you were just talking about, that's changed him into a better dad as well as a better person. It's too.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's
It's-
great guy.
yeah.
At the SO, I used to teach a lot of classes, and one of the classes I taught, or in multiple of them, there was implicit bias, which is similar. If it might be just another word for what you were saying, the unconscious
Subconscious prejudice.
Yeah,
subconscious prejudice. So like implicit
you get
bias.
to hearing it so
Yeah.
long and so many times, it gets stored away back there, and that's
Oh yeah.
and you
Yeah.
don't even know who the person may be or what it is. I mean, it could be millions of different things.
And so,
Yeah.
so I got caught up into that. I know that you probably have too. Not as bad as some, of course, but maybe worse than some.
Right.
But I did.
Well-
There was times where I was passing judgment on people just based upon what I heard from others, or just being part of that sort of team think mentality, trying to be part of the cool man's crew and all that. You know, the good old boys and all that. Just want to be liked and all that. So let's make fun of dude buddy who's a stick or doesn't do well with confrontation, or is young and doesn't know how to handle himself, or doesn't know how to put someone in handcuffs, or whenever they're handling a adrenaline-filled situation fails the first time that they handle it, which you're going to. You're not.
Yeah.
Rarely ever do you have someone with a warrior mentality the first time that they ever handle conflict.
Right.
Yeah.
You name one person that did that. I'd like to talk to them because they're lying. I'm telling you they are.
Well, I'll switch gears a little bit and get into y'all's side of the profession. That jail over there is full of people that we think about that way towards right now.
Oh yeah.
And they're really, once you get to know them, they're really nothing like that. You know what I mean? Now, some of them are. That's why they're in that position that they're in. But some of them aren't. Because we used to, back when I first got into the fire service, we had detainees that would come to the station, and they would do all the station duties every day.
Oh dang.
Mop the floors, cut the grass, clean up the station.
Absolutely.
You know,
They did it for the police department too.
and you would just want to ask the guys, how did you end up in here?
Yeah.
But some of them, that's where they want to be because that's the only way they get attention.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just humans they're a sophisticated piece of equipment. That's all I can tell you.
That's a great point too. It goes both ways. So the majority of my career I spent in the jail. Yeah. I did training and all that and all some investigations, but yeah, I was in the jail. And so I have a very intimate relation with that. It's ironic because only in my latter years there, I started to get on like 8th or 9th year, I started actually showing that intentionality with people. And I think it was with my walk with Christ that I actually started going and saying, well, instead of just taking warrants on these guys or disciplinary measures, I wonder what it would do if I actually talked to them and tried to mentor them for a second. The ones that I should be receptive or at least try.
Exactly.
Right. Even though I am committing this punishment upon them, I want to talk to them. And it really opened my eyes. I'm talking about more often than not, especially the young folks in there, the ones that have been hardened by life, the ones that are still trying to figure themselves out. And unfortunately, by life, I mean like the prison system with a lot of the guys.
Yeah.
They would be crying in front of me just by me asking them questions.
Right.
Just by me saying, "Are you? What's going on? Are you all right?" And they're like, "What do you mean I'm all right?" I'm like, "Are you all right? You don't look okay. When's the last time someone asked you, are you okay?"
Right.
They don't.
And you'll get burned by a lot of them.
Yeah.
And just because you get burned by them don't mean you need to stop. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, yeah,
it's the same thing we were discussing a minute ago. You just, it didn't work this time. Maybe it will next time.
Yeah.
Same thing with people.
That's right.
The same thing with that. I go to extend upon what I was saying before, and I'll go and finish it with this. The same people I was judging in my own profession, my fellow coworkers, sheriff's deputies and all that. Those people, whenever I actually started taking the time to actually get to know them, were amazing people. I'm talking
Absolutely.
about so awesome and genuine. The quiet ones were always great. And actually, they turn out even better than the ones that were judging them. 90% of the time, if they didn't quit and go somewhere else. I'm telling you right now, every single time. I can name names, but I'm not going to blast out names. But I'm telling you, more than my fingers can count, I can name names because I was there long enough to be able to be part of the training staff for that. But the point is this. If you're one of those people that does that, take time to invest in these people. They're human capital. Take time to invest in them. Of course, someone who's walking with Christ, but even if you're not walking with Christ, even if you're teeter-tottering, or even if you don't even know, having that sort of intentionality will only better you as a human and will only better your circumstances around you. The people that you have in your life, I mean, they're so impactful, and the way that you impact them is all you have to do is you take a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, and show them that you actually care about them as an individual, not just as a number. That makes a difference. It makes a difference in the church. It makes a difference with friendships, with community, but especially whenever you're in such a trepidatious environment. It's hard. So, yeah.
Well, sometimes people just need an opportunity or attention. Somebody needs to just. Sometimes people, all they need is somebody just listen to them. Which we talk about suicide all the time. If somebody would show that person some attention, or talk to them, or paid attention to them, more than likely they'd probably still be here.
I have a buddy that still texts me. I was a supervisor. I took him to the side. I said, "You need to shave your face," which is ironic because I have a beard now. But but I was like, "You look like crap." I said, "You're not crap, but you look like it. So why don't you act like you're not?" I said, "Let's pretend like we're not together." I said, "I'll go and I'll buy you a razor." And it turns out this guy was never taught how to look like a man, never act like a man, posture, anything.
That's most individuals like that are.
Anything like that. And I mean, genuinely, and this is a young fella now. I was like, get your hair cut. Get your face, get your high and tight. I'll show you. And I was sending him pictures to his phone. This is the haircut I want you to have. He had it that week, but he never had someone to guide him. Everyone made fun of him. Everyone talked down to him. Didn't know how to fight. We started working on how to fight. All the other things. I'm not teaching people how to punch people in the face, but what I'm saying is that self-defense, I should say, defensive tactics. Anyways, the point. But it made all the difference. He still texts me, and I'll probably end up calling him tomorrow because I owe him a call because he texted me. I'm serious.
That's why God brought him to your heart right now.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
he's a good boy going through a lot. But I would have never known that if I wouldn't have sat him down in my office and been like, "What is wrong with you, man? Are you okay?"
And that's part of being a leader, is recognizing that and taking that extra step. Because a lot of times we get comfortable. I mean, heck, you could say that in our job, our profession, our walk with Christ, our marriage. You can say that in anything. And when you start to get comfortable, you start neglecting things. You start being like very standoffish to things that should be done. And then you have the opposite of that spectrum where you have cockiness opposed to confidence. And then it's like I tell people sometimes being too confident and being cocky in what you do results in complacency and failure. So I almost felt, I don't know if I should tell you this because Megan's going to listen to it, but one time we were training on a ladder and we'd climb that thing 10 times a shift at the station I was at, and it was no big deal. And I got so comfortable and almost cocky with how well we were on the ladder that the only reason I didn't fall off that ladder is because my arm got caught in we had gear on, and my arm got caught in the side rung that had, you know how when they're welding them and had stitching? Well, it ripped my coat and slowed me down from falling, and I grabbed the rail right on the side.
How far were you up?
60 foot, 70 foot.
Yeah,
I would have died.
Dead, yeah.
And that's why when I tell the guys like Nickel, he's a go-getter, man. He loves doing everything quick. You know, he's one of those guys when I'm trying to teach him how to work out and gain muscle, he's like, and I'm like, you're not going to gain any muscle.
You're going to look cool doing it.
But I tell these guys, I'm like, look, we got to be confident, but we can't be too confident or cocky because then that results in complacency. You also can't be standoffish. We can't never do it or get comfortable, but we also can't be too cocky either. There's a fine median there, because I'm not a cocky person, but when it came to being on the ladder, I got too comfortable, too cocky, quote unquote, and it almost cost me my life. And wow. I'll never forget that, like, because now, like, I can climb that ladder a lot faster than I do, but I don't, because I make sure I make my steps. I do all those things, because when I'm climbing that ladder, I'm thinking about two things. I'm thinking about whatever I'm supposed to do, the job to accomplish, if it's a rescue or to man the monitor, and the fact that I'm going home. Like, I love this profession and job, and I care about what I do, and I care about people, but I'm going home. And I almost didn't go home that day. And so, and there's other times in our profession that we come really close to that, whether it's carelessness like mine or it's like the real deal. Mm-hmm. And that's part of our profession. But like I told my wife, if I'm not coming home, I want it to be for something that I signed up for, not for something stupid like that I should have come home for, not complacency or something like that. And training has a lot to do with that, in both of our professions. My dad always said, you train so you don't have to think. He goes, if you start thinking in serious situations, it obviously, you think long, you think wrong. Mm-hmm. And he said, if you train, your body, your mind, and everything will do what you have to do, so that the things you don't have to think about will save your life when you do have to think.
Absolutely.
And so it's the same thing. And it's just like,
well, I hate to bust through your story, but I think a little bit of that speed up that ladder has changed, maybe due to age as well. I didn't want to burst your Superman bubble.
Why do you think I want to get a platform so I don't have to climb the ladder anymore?
I know.
I was thinking more of the
youngest guy in the
LB
room
pounds.
Talking here, but
the what?
The LB pounds.
Oh, give me a break.
I'm just saying, joints don't work like they used to.
Well, yeah, and then the LBs. He's right. I'm sorry.
I feel like a jerk now. I'm sorry.
You are. You are.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Speaking of being a jerk, last thing I had to add was everybody in here either is or has been a supervisor for years. And the one thing that I can say that everybody in here has done or knows about is reprimanding people. And the one thing that you can't do is to put a label and reprimand someone without, I'm talking about internally in your heart.
Yeah.
You can't do that as a Christian, and that's what we do all the time. We do that. That's that unconscious prejudice, really, right there, where you're reprimanding someone and not even giving them a chance. You can't do that. Talk to them,
Absolutely.
give them a chance. That's what I learned. And that took me time. It really did. And I'm not that old, but that took me time of like thinking like a jerk. I did. I thought that, you think you're the bee's knees, you think you're blah, 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 but you're not. You know, and same thing as being a Christian. Like you think you know this, you think you know that, you think you don't need to know somebody or spend time like y'all did, and actually, especially like what Scotty was saying, and actually sit there and talk to him and be like, hey, and why don't you think that there's a God, or that there's Jesus Christ, and blah 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 blah. So,
well, a unique challenge about the profession that we're in is, think about it like this: I have to discipline somebody that in the next 3 minutes I may be having to depend on them to save my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you understand what I'm saying? And that's why whenever I did have to, I didn't have to do it very much because I had awesome people. That's just the main thing, was I had awesome people. But when I did, I needed to educate them on why we got to do it like this, because, it's just different.
Yeah.
In what we have to do against, I don't want to say, a regular 8 to 5er. But, when you have to call somebody and you have to sit them down and you have to have a stern conversation with them, 20 seconds from now, 30 seconds from now, the buzzer's going to go off, and they're going to be driving you behind a rig
Yeah.
with your life in their hands.
Well, I'm going
And
to say, you talk
that
about,
is a unique
it's, yeah.
situation to
it's
be in.
very
What a
unique.
relationship to have with someone too.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
you
yeah.
just got done burning them and working them,
Yeah.
and now they got your life in their hand.
Right.
one thing-
and,
Hold on, Chief.
yeah.
Oh,
And I mean, that's why I believe, like you were saying earlier, Scotty, you have to sit down and you have to know them. You have to get to know them so you can explain it to them in a way that they'll understand.
Yeah. Well,
You know, that's the main thing. They have to understand.
yeah. Oh,
You
definitely.
know, why are we doing this? Why am I having to do this?
Yep.
I didn't do it. You did it, but me and you got to figure out a way to get through this.
It's funny that when Jonathan mentioned reprimanding, one of the things I was thinking about Bones is the fact that he's never had to really get on to me for anything. We've talked about things that I need to do better or we're working on or whatever. You know, station day-to-day activities, kind of things that we need to work on and that maybe somebody on my shift needs to work on, that kind of thing. But I'll tell you one thing, even though I've never had that, like an actual reprimand from Chief Tenant Bones, I will tell you, I know exactly the kind of leader and person he is. He is the guy who, when you get reprimanded, you feel two ways when you get reprimanded. You either feel pissed and mad, or you feel like you disappointed him.
absolutely.
And he's a guy that when he has to reprimand you, it's like, shoot, I let him down. You know, I'm disappointed. That's how you feel, because you know that he legitimately cares about you. Like, he legitimately wants you to be better. It's not like you're getting pissed. I've been reprimanded by somebody before where I legitimately want to fight them in the office because what they were saying meant no sense. They never said that to me, but yet they were belittling me while they're reprimanding me. And that did not make me want to be a better person. That did not make me want to work with that guy. That did not make me want to drive him in a rig and take care of his life, even though I would have. But it didn't make me do. I would have drug him out in the front yard and be like, "Yeah, get away from me, you stingy piece of crap." You know, I just left him out there and I'm gasping for air. Yeah, well, there's oxygen in the truck. Go get it. You know, that kind of thing. But there's two kinds. Like, you're either going to respect the reprimand, and you feel like, oh man, like, I gotta make this better. Like, I gotta do something about this. This isn't right.
I was just about to say, I think the second part to what you're saying, feeling disappointment or feel like you got to make it better, you're also feeling like you learned something.
Absolutely.
You
You don't
to.
forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Discipline through love,
Yeah.
not through anger and
One of the ways I tried to be, I never got disappointed unless we didn't learn from it. And that's both of us.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if we don't learn from it,
It's
it's
a wash.
it's nonsense, you
Yeah.
know. But that's one thing that I always tried to do. I'll never be disappointed in anybody unless they don't learn from it. Mm-hmm. And that goes for many different things. I mean, it's just not work. It's life.
Yeah.
I mean, raising kids, being married. I mean, it's the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it goes back to what I tell my baseball players, my kids, and everything, and people in general. And a philosophy I have is, you have winning. These coaches that say, and people who say winning is everything. This. I don't believe that, because I have a saying: you have to lose to learn. That's when you're
right.
going to learn. If you lose and you don't learn, then it was for nothing. And so you have to lose to learn.
And that's the same way with winning.
Absolutely.
You have to win and learn as well.
And that's a lot of people don't. If you just win, and everything goes your way,
Right.
when you lose or when
can't-
tragedy
you can't
hits,
take it.
No,
You cannot
You crumble.
take it. That's right. You just fold up like, what do they say, a cheap suit?
You
know what I mean?
Like cheap suit. Yeah. Man,
reminds me of that time in defensive tactics, folding up like a cheap suit.
yeah, I've been folded up before.
Hopefully, we can get this guy on here that we were talking about earlier, he does judo. That he might be able to fold you up, Scotty.
No, you said earlier I'm old and my joints don't work anymore. I tell
He's
people
the
now.
same age as you.
I tell people now I don't bend anymore. I break. That's the problem. That's the difference. I'm still the same mean and still the same toughness, but I just break now, and I have to quit earlier.
Or you can have that. No offense, old man strength like Bones. You can see it. He'd be able to take you, sling you around a
Did you
couple
just
of
call
times.
him an old man?
I said old man strength.
dare
It's a
I am old.
it's a figure of speech. It's a figure of speech.
With all due respect,
Yeah.
I did, yeah.
You know,
I thought I said that, right? Didn't I say that?
It's a different world I live in now.
I said with all due respect means you can say whatever you want, right?
yeah, pretty much.
That's what.
I sit down at the table
told
to
that
eat
once.
with these young men and women and find out they're 22, 23
Oh, my
years
goodness.
old, 25 years old. And I've been married for 34.
Goodness.
Been married longer than they've been alive.
I've been with Megan as long as Dempsey's been alive.
Yeah.
Double D.
Well, y'all, I think we're gonna have to wrap this thing up.
Nice. Yeah.
Before we
awesome.
do, we were just on the topic of learning. Mouton.
Oh snap!
Want to introduce a new segment for old Mouton here
Good. Finally, not picking on me anymore.
since he's here.
What did I do? Oh my.
Mouton, why don't you educate us and give us a word of the day?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to sit back, relax, and learn something new. That's because it's time for a word with Jonathan. Da-da-da-da-da.
You can't use the several that you used earlier in this podcast.
Conjecture.
Okay.
Conjecture. Say it again.
Conjecture.
Conjecture.
Why did you lean in closer to the mic like they couldn't hear you?
Conjecture.
Could you repeat the word, please?
What is the origin?
I'm having flashbacks. No, conjecture.
Seriously.
And the reason why I brought that up is because that is something that we do in the biblical community. And I've done it myself whenever you speak on things that you don't actually know the basis of historically and actually biblically. You speak based upon not actual truths.
Yeah.
Right? So conjecture basically means to make an assertion, to make a point, to claim a truth based upon incomplete information.
All right.
And so
Nice.
And that's the easiest way to get yourself in trouble,
amen.
absolutely.
is making a decision on something that you don't know all the facts with. And I'm guilty of it all the time.
And you can mislead
That
an
goes-
entire
I think
congregation.
That
way.
goes perfectly with our
That's everything.
conversation today.
Yeah. Which one? The one about dinosaurs? No, I'm just kidding.
That would be an interesting.
No,
I'm just
stop
saying.
it.
Everybody who heard that,
Stop
I was
it.
gonna like rewind and go
Hey.
back to listen to the whole
Oh
episode
my
again.
gosh! If you would have been a fly,
Where did they talk about
anyone listening would have been a fly on the wall. 30 minutes before we started this podcast, would have been like, "What in the world, Scotty and Jonathan? What in?"
It was going places. It just had no ending.
Start putting energy drinks in the air. I mean, words get to flying.
man.
Well, that was a great word, Jonathan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
That was a
Absolutely.
great
Thank you,
I
word.
like
thank you.
that. Went along great with what we were talking about.
Exactly.
Wise guy
Bone.
once told me
Yeah.
his name was Jacob.
Jacoby.
Jacoby.
All right.
Encyclopedia.
Well,
Diction.
good. Cool.
Bones, thank you for
Oh.
being with us tonight, man. Thank you for
It's my pleasure.
sitting through all the chaos.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Trust
Absolutely.
me. I would
you-
love to do it again.
Yes,
Y'all
sir.
realize
Absolutely.
now why I
Yeah, we
wish
got-
I had more than 10, 15 minutes in the morning with him at shift change.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'd love to have you
Yeah,
back.
absolutely.
Seriously.
Yeah, just on topics and
Yeah.
stuff, just hanging out.
Absolutely.
Well,
So
Maybe next time you can do it on a B shift. That way Clint can be with you.
I'd love to have Clinton here.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
sunshine.
it's kind of funny. Clinton, Joshua Ellington, and my son Bruce went from pre-K all the way through high school together, and they're all three
Wait.
firefighters.
I didn't. So Josh too.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Josh this morning at the gym.
Yeah.
I love Josh. He's a great
Yeah.
guy.
Well, you know his mom and daddy.
Oh yeah, they go to our church.
Yeah, they're.
I just met his dad for the first time.
That's our
this
small
past-
group leaders.
Yeah, I just met his dad for the first time this past Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
He worked with my father-in-law,
Yeah.
Small world.
and he told me that I needed to bust my father-in-law's balls more.
We got some really good people that go to our church. We're
Absolutely.
very fortunate to
I
have.
love our church.
Speaking of which, y'all should all come to Church at the Grove.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a shout out.
Shout out.
Yeah,
Church,
shout out
shout out to
Church at the
Church at the
Grove.
Grove.
amen.
Amen.
All right, cool.
And if you want to come to a small group where you get fed well, just look me up.
Yeah, or me. I only got 3 families of mine. It's really small.
Yeah.
It's really small. Which, whatever.
It's the
We won't
name,
get into
small-
that right
small
now.
group.
my gosh.
Small
All
group.
right.
Cut. Take a break. All right.
Yeah, we're good. That was a blessing. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
coming.
guys
Thank you,
for
Bones.
having me.
Yeah,
I
really
love
Gentleman
it.
and a scholar.
I don't know about all that, but
Mainly the scholar.
I like to refer to myself as a WIP,
What's that?
work in progress.
Yeah, there you go.
Aren't we all, man?
Yeah,
I am a
definitely.
work
We
in
all.
progress.
Definitely.
All right. Y'all, we're going to get out of here. Did you want to do prayer requests, Scotty?
Do y'all have any? Do you have any, Bones?
I mean, I always got some. I mean, you know, I always like to pray for our church leaders.
Yeah.
It's a hard time to be a church leader right now.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
I always want to put those guys on there. And, you know, going through the building campaign and,
Absolutely.
and everything that goes along with that, you know, that doesn't take very long to get the train off the tracks. And we become derailed
Yeah.
because we lose focus on what we're trying to go,
Yeah.
where we're trying to get to.
Amen.
So I always say, you know, our church leaders, the church, you know, our community, the world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
we see it from a different perspective than
Most
most
people.
people do.
What about you, Jonathan?
I'd say,
The baby.
yeah, I'd say for our nation, for sure, for God to be held higher in our nation, for sure, and of course the war that we got going on in Israel. So, and of course, my wife who's pregnant,
Yeah.
healthy wife, and healthy baby.
There you go.
It's gonna be number 4. So shout out to Shelby, love of my life, and that she has she's able to get through this,
Yeah.
in a healthy way. It's been a little bit rough for her. So
Yeah. We've been praying for her.
yeah.
You good, Jacob?
Yeah, y'all learned last episode that
Yeah.
my wife is also expecting.
How did that
So
first one go?
first ultrasound was good. They, it was just a little
Peanut.
little pea,
Yeah.
little peanut in there. They detected the heartbeat and everything, and it sounded healthy
Good.
and everything. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well,
But yeah,
mine's
just-
still.
Just continue to pray for healthy wife, healthy baby,
Amen.
healthy mom.
Baby,
Of course.
healthy baby. Who's
Of
a boy?
course. Mine's still with my. Great.
I just want us to record back and be able to tell that I called it. I'm just saying. Okay, go ahead, Scotty.
Jeez.
Sorry, Kelsey.
Oh, I'm about to be a Debbie Downer. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, my buddy who he's struggling hard with cancer, and he's it's getting hard on him because he says he can't remember the last day where he went in pain or hurting. He's going from like immunotherapy that's making him throw up and feeling nauseated and terrible and just recklessly sick to radiation that's making him hurt and be really tired and can't. He's just it's getting rough on him. So still pray for him, and then the family who lost their child this past week. At they were a part of Summit, which Bones mentioned tonight, part of the homeschool at Summit, and they played at the school that I coach at. My daughters go to. They played there, or she played there, soccer. So pray for that family and healing and I think the funeral's this Friday. So, keep them in your thoughts, and the community, like everybody's mentioned, our community. There's people all over in our community that we don't even know are going through the same thing. Lost people going through cancer.
Yeah.
And then you in this society we live in now, it's the mental health and anxiety and stress, and most of it's crazy because it's not even needed, but the way that things are and the way that society is not, it's just pushing it. It's like we find ourselves having this mental and anxious feeling and stress and all this stuff. And when we look, if you step back and look at it, it's like, man, why am I doing this? But then you can't find a way out of it. And it's like, I pray for those people who are really struggling with that. And I know that everybody does, but some people really struggle with it. And I just pray that, for those people who are hurting right now. So.
Yeah. And if anyone else has any requests or anything like that, any sort of request, anything that you want us to pray about or show any intention towards, like I said, this is where the intentionality happens, and let us try and pray for you. So reach out to us. Jacob, how can they reach out if they want to?
Yeah, respondcommunity@gmail.com. You can shoot us an email there, or if you go to our Facebook page, it's Faithful Responders. You can there should be a message button, then you can shoot us an instant message.
I promise you, if you reach out to us, I promise you, if you have a prayer request and you reach out to us, it will be prayed over. We make lists in our phones. I have a prayer list in our phone. We all have lists in our phones. We go over this. It's not going to be unprayed for.
That's right.
We promise you.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Word up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you guys again.
Love you so much.
I love y'all too.
I'll see you in a day and a half.
It comes and goes so fast.
This poor man, we've kept him for 5 hours.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Goodness gracious.
All right, y'all. We're going to get out of here.
Love y'all.
Love you guys. Y'all stay safe out there.
Much love.
Peace.
Maybe that should be the outro.